Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Season 3 of the Coffin Corner Podcast. I'm your host, GoodNightPunk, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Richie. Richie, what's going on, dude?
Oh, same old, same old. Sweating out the summer heat, but getting to watch football on the weekends is a nice bonus.
It's been weird here lately. I was driving home from work the other morning, and the sun was out everywhere, and it was pouring rain on top of me.
That happened when I was leaving your house Saturday morning, or Sunday morning. I was right there on Riggs, and literally it started raining, and I'm looking around, there's not a cloud in the sky. I don't know what was happening. I think an airplane just discharged on my car.
You're just covered in jet fuel now.
Yeah, well, that's not the discharge I was thinking of.
Oh, well, that's even better. It's super weird. And then, of course, it just stays on top of the heat. Then you get some humidity. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's the best part. At least it's not 120. It's like today it was 106, and I actually, for a moment, I was like, you know what, it actually feels nice outside.
Yeah, right? Yeah, when it's in the morning and it's like 90, I'm like, oh, it's so nice.
it's a
stay this all day.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. Gotcha.
But it is preseason football's in full swing, and that means we're just closer to the season, so that makes me happy.
Thank goodness, because preseason football is the absolute worst. I'm just throwing it out there.
At least it's football. That's the way I look at it. At least there's just football to watch. I mean, it doesn't mean much, but I'll take it.
I'm good with continuing to watch baseball until the season actually starts, because
true,
that's actually got some meaning behind it. But yeah, I can't wait for the season to start. And it's even let's say 2 weeks into training camp, and all kinds of crazy stuff's already happened. So we'll talk about some of the news. As well as, some recaps of week 1, what happened. But, man, it's, as a sneak peek, the NFC North got rattled a little bit this week, so that'll be...
It did, yeah. Let's get into our top 5 so we can talk about that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, what did you cook up for the top 5 this week?
So top 5, I was thinking about, we didn't do a draft pod pre or post, so we didn't really get to talk about rookies that we liked, but I thought we'd dive into rookies that we're excited about for 2024 now as we get closer to the season. So I'll start off my top 5, and I assumed he'd be on your list too, but Spencer Rattler, former ASU, right? You went to ASU? I knew he was a local high school
but he was
kid.
at Arizona. He's a Phoenix area high school student.
Yes.
I think he played at Perry High School.
Okay. And then he went, bounced around in college for a bit, had a lot of hype coming out of high school that kind of died down. Looked good for the Saints in week 1 of the preseason. The Saints are a team that need an answer at quarterback long term, and it would be cool to see him become that answer. So I'm excited to see if he gets an opportunity to play during the season if Derek Carr struggles. Or maybe we don't get to see him at all this year, but I'm hoping we do.
So I just wanted to go with different people than you, because Spencer Rattler was definitely going to be on my list. I didn't even think that you would actually put him on your list. So I was kind of surprised. But the craziest part is I think the more fun conversation as far as Spencer Rattler goes is there's only 2 big names, well, maybe 3. One of them's on my list. But there's 2 big names right now that are going to be backups that are highly touted rookies. And the question is, between Michael Penix and Spencer Rattler, who do you think's got set up better for success?
That honestly is a tough one. I mean, the Falcons look a lot better this year, but I mean, Spencer Rattler. Gosh, that's tough. Honestly, I like Spencer Rattler probably more than I do Michael Penix, to be perfectly honest. But I like the Falcons team more than I like the Saints at this point. If Sean Payton was still in New Orleans, I'd say Spencer Rattler.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see between those two when they finally do get to start. And I feel like if Derek Carr doesn't do well, which, he was subpar last year, Spencer Rattler might kind of pull the same kind of deal as Aiden O'Connell last year.
Yeah. So, no, I think either one of two things will happen. The Saints do well, and we'll see Spencer Rattler week 18. Or they don't do well, and we'll see Spencer Rattler in week 9 or 10.
Yeah. It will be interesting, but he looked good in the preseason.
He did.
For what that's worth. Mine is my number. I did put him at number 5 just because it's a complete and utter homer pick, but he wasn't drafted. Well, not even a rookie as a drafted player, but that's Jake Bates. Michael Badgley got hurt for the entire season for the Lions. The Lions had signed Jake Bates as a rookie prospect off of the Michigan Panthers from the XFL. And he was very good in the XFL. He 17 of 22 on his field goals, so 75-ish%. But the biggest thing for him was he made kicks of 55, 60, 62, 64, and those were just the highs for the games. And I don't know if there were other highs in those games that just weren't listed as the high because of something was higher. But he is a long-distance kicker. The only knock I hear on him is that he has a harder time when it's closer, which is crazy to me. But kicking, since Jason Hansen has left the Lions a long time ago, has been rough. And Prater was about the only thing that we had good going on, and then we just let him go for some reason, and it's been kicker purgatory since then. So if Jake Bates, because I think last year we used 4 different kickers over the course of the season, which is just not something you want. So I'm really hoping that Jake Bates can turn his XFL success into NFL success, because that would make me very happy if we found a young kicker that can just stay our kicker and be good.
What was the do they kick extra points like the NFL does in the XFL?
They do
from
not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if he's bad short distance, then
the extra points would show. Yeah.
No, that's good. I mean, kicker. It's funny. People completely undervalue that position, but the Commanders have struggled with kicker for 10 years now.
It's terrible. It's I hate it so much.
It can lose you games. Look at Justin Tucker with Baltimore. He's so good, and he's won them games. So yeah, it's an undervalued position for sure.
Well, think about this as well. NFL playoffs last year. Dan Campbell decides to go for it on 4th down instead of kicking a field goal in the NFC Championship game. And everyone gave him crap for it. But here's the thing. Michael Badgley had not been great. And so there was no guarantee he was even going to make the field goal. And that's the problem with having a kicker you can't trust, is that you have to do things like that. Now, granted, he can't make it if he doesn't get the chance, but still, you're going off our 4th down percentage versus his percentage of making kicks from this range, right? And so hopefully we can get over that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's the argument, everybody says take the points, but they don't realize when you're kicking a 45-yard field goal, it's not a gimme.
Yeah, so. It's not automatic points.
Yeah. I like it. My number 4 is Jonathan Brooks. He was a running back who was tearing it up last year in college before he got hurt. Goes to Carolina, who definitely need a stud running back. He's not going to play for the first few weeks, but probably not for the first 6 weeks if he goes on PUP. But I'm excited to see, how healthy is he? Because if he comes back healthy, it looks like he did in college. I mean, dude was awesome in college. So I'm hoping he's healthy. I'm hoping he comes back and looks like that. It would suck if his career took a hit from an injury is like his final year in college. That's always awful. So yeah, I'm looking forward to whenever he does get on the field. How does he look?
Yeah, and his competition is Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders. So I mean, he's got a good chance to be the starter. And so all he's got to do is come off that injury, look good, and he might set himself up for a good run in Carolina because they'll need him.
Yeah, for sure.
So, my second guy is. So I put it in parentheses here, Spencer Rattler, because I was going to say him. But I went a different direction to tight end, and that's Brock Bowers from Las Vegas. I wrote here wide receiver, but that's wrong. Tight end. I was really surprised when the Raiders drafted Bowers, because the year before they drafted Michael Mayer, who was highly talked about all preseason into the season. I don't remember like what his stats were throughout the year, but like they made it out like Michael Mayer was the guy, and then now they draft another guy. So it's
that's because they panicked.
They must have.
It's like when you're on the clock in a fantasy draft and the guy you want goes right before you, and you only have like 2 minutes, so you start to panic. That's what the Raiders did. All the quarterbacks were gone, so they just went, "Who's the best guy left? We'll take Bowers."
No, I think he's going to be a really good tight end. It's just interesting that they now have two really good tight ends. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to run more 2 tight end sets, which would probably be good because they don't have a brand name running back. So if they want to set up Zamir White for success, have an extra tight end there blocking on the line might not be a bad idea. And when you have 2 like Bowers and Mayer, that is probably going to be a good thing for the Raiders.
Well, and they don't have. I mean, they've got Devontae Adams. I like Jacoby Myers, but I can't think of who else they have at receiver. So playing more tight ends rather than more receivers probably a good idea for them too. So yeah, I think they'll get both of them on the field.
That's the thing. I think they have a decent team. Like I like Zamir White. I hope he does well. But at least at wide receiver, they got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and they list Trey Tucker as their third, but their fourth is Jalen Guyton, who I always thought was a decent enough wide receiver for the Chargers, just never got going. So I think they got a good core if they can make it work. So
yeah, I like Zamir White this year. He looked good filling in for Josh Jacobs last year. So yeah. We shall see. My number 3 is another running back, Blake Corum from Michigan. I've mentioned this in the last podcast before, last season, the season before. I love the running game, and Blake Corum is a great 3-down running back. Looked great in Michigan for Harbaugh. Wish he could have gone to the Chargers and played under Harbaugh. Went to the other LA team where they already have Kyron Williams, so he may end up only being a red zone guy or goal line back, but I'm hoping he can show some more and maybe turn it more into a timeshare or a split there with Kyron as like the electric guy and Corum as the bruiser. But we shall see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, like the percentage of carries between those two, whether it's like 90-10, 80-20, but I don't think it's going to be a 2-back room for sure. Kyron is just too good. Yeah.
But if Corum shows like he did in college and you can spell Kyron to keep him healthy, maybe it'll become more 60-40. Or, then Corum just becomes the inside the 20s guy.
I think the reason really that they did get him is because Kyron had such a huge workload last year. I think he was in the top 3 of carries last year.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to look, but yeah, he was they used him, and that's even injured. He was injured a little bit, so yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's nice for them to have a backup of Corum's skill set.
For sure.
Who's your next one?
So my next one is kind of a mystery as far as what's going on in San Francisco right now, because I think if Ayuk goes, And even if he doesn't, to a lesser extent, but if Ayuk goes, I think that in the draft they were thinking about the fact that they might lose Ayuk, despite the fact that they are posturing that they're not going to trade Ayuk. That's Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver they drafted. He's a good receiver. He'd fill in well, at least as a rookie. Maybe not do the things that Ayuk does, but get the time to play, build himself up in 2024 to hopefully be a cheaper option as that second guy on the 49ers. So I think it'd be interesting if they do trade Ayuk, how he does this season as someone that'll probably be the guy that's filling those shoes. And even if Ayuk stays, what he does is possibly a slot guy or the third receiver in 3 receiver sets. So I think Ricky Pearsall will be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I do think Ayuk gets moved before the season starts. It's just seeming more and more likely. So I think Pearsall will get a lot of usage as their second or third if there's somebody else they like above him. You didn't even mention that he's a local kid to Arizona. We gotta love that.
True, another one. The Arizona high schools have been pumping out college recruits lately, and seeing them succeed and go to the NFL has been really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to see. Because now it's
Christian
like,
Kirk,
maybe go,
for example,
maybe go see
one.
some high school football games and see the next stars.
Terrell Suggs set the path for everyone.
Yeah. All right, my number 2 is Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously looks amazing in college. Son of Marvin Harrison, which is cool. Plays for the Arizona Cardinals, which is our local team. And just looks like a beast. The whole thing with his jersey and all that is weird, but whatever. I'm just excited to see him on the field.
Somehow
see how he does
it's
with Kyler.
The middle of August, and he still hasn't signed his NFLPA contract so they can sell his jersey. I don't know what's going on with that. That's weird.
I don't know. I don't get it. I am not going to comment on what his thought process behind it. Whatever, man. Do you? Just as the thing is, he's got to go out there and deliver on the field. If you go out there and he's not playing well, then he's going to look like an idiot for trying to stand out on his own. So
my thought process right now that just went through my head is that if he signed it right now, people have been waiting so long, the sales of that jersey would be astronomical.
Oh yeah.
If he goes out and has a stinker in week 1 and signed it after that, then he's not making as much money. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. He's rolling the
dice. Yeah, he's rolling the dice. If he goes out and has a couple rough weeks to start the season, everyone's going to be like, well, now we don't want your damn jersey.
Yeah. Maybe I'll wait and buy that one.
Yeah. The Cardinals, haven't had a stud receiver since Larry. I liked Christian Kirk, but now we're talking about a rookie that we're bringing in, and hopefully, he's going to be a huge, Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs type guy for us. So yeah, excited to see how that plays out.
For sure. Another wide receiver. I got another wide receiver for us, and that is Keon Coleman from the Bills. The Bills wide receiver room, everybody talks about them losing Stephon Diggs, but on top of Stephon Diggs, which is a huge loss, they also got rid of Gabe
Davis.
Gabe Davis. I was like, is Gabriel his last name or his first? I was so confused for a second.
Gabe Gabriel.
Gabe Gabriel. They got rid of Gabe Davis, which is kind of Jared Allen. What is wrong with me? Names are just not
You
happening
called him
right
Jared
now.
Allen last week, too.
I think I did. Why can't I remember his name?
Josh Allen.
It is a J. Okay.
It is a J. You were close.
Last year, Gabe Gabriel was Jared Allen's his oh shit button, basically. Josh Allen threw to Gabe Davis when Stephon Diggs was not open a lot of the time. And a lot of those were touchdowns. So he's losing 2 big options there. He gained Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
They also gained Or no, they gained Curtis Samuel. They keep Khalil Shakir, who I'm still not completely convinced of. So Keon Coleman is a big question mark there on what he can do. It'll be interesting to see what he develops into, whether he becomes the number one guy there or not. Because I'm looking down the roster, and the names are, there's name recognition there. They also got Mac Hollins. They got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Weirdly enough, they also have Andy Isabella. But
no, he was still in the league.
I don't know how he's still in the league, to be honest.
Keon Coleman has a lot of opportunity. I mean, you're talking about the top 2 receivers on the team are gone. All of those passes have to go somewhere. So I mean, Keon Coleman has the opportunity to be a huge. Yeah, I mean that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out in Buffalo. Who's Josh Allen's new favorite target?
They have Chase Claypool too?
No, they just cut him.
Oh, okay, I was like, another what? All right,
yeah,
so
they
had
did.
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, they did, but they just cut him. I think like yesterday even.
No, well, that happens.
So, my
Keon
last
Coleman
one
is definitely one I'm keeping an eye on.
Especially fantasy-wise. I mean, that dude, that's
a top offense in the NFL the last few years. That looking for a number one. So
we'll be keeping my eyes on that in the preseason. But my number one should be obvious. It's the shirt I'm wearing. It's Jaden Daniels. The Commanders have our first potential franchise quarterback since Kirk. Everybody always says RG3 as if Kirk didn't exist. Yeah, I mean, we took him number 2 overall. It's like you have to hope the guy pans out. Otherwise, we're starting over all over again. Looked good. Preseason week 1. Reports out of training camp have been very, very positive. I mean, ASU kid, obviously, gotta give him a shout out there. Won the Heisman at LSU, but started ASU. Yeah, so that's going to be the entire season for the Commanders is just how does Jaden Daniels look?
Yeah. And how do they develop him to keep him on a track that's moving forward and not backwards?
Well, the biggest issue is going to be protecting him because our offensive line has not been very good for the past couple of years because Ron Rivera doesn't know talent evaluation. So we're a little nervous about that. Hopefully Jaden gets rid of the ball quickly. But, yeah. I'm excited, though. That first drive, he only played one drive, and it's preseason week 1, so I'm not, over the moon.
Not going crazy about it.
The third down, it was 3rd and short, I believe, and they called a running play. He actually decided to audible to all go, and that's when he threw the ball to De'Ami Brown for 45 yards. So for a rookie to have the confidence in a game like that, to be like, no, I know better, and for it to work out, I mean, that's massive. So.
And the coach to back him up after in the presser.
Yeah, which ironically is Cliff Kingsbury, who I hated in Arizona, but I mean, maybe he's just not a good head coach. He'll be a good coordinator, just not a good head coach.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. That's of the 3 drafted at the top, he's the one I like the most. So
yeah, same.
Mine is another quarterback who was not drafted near the top at all. He was. Let me go find where he was drafted, because I think it was a 5th round.
See, I was gonna say 6th, but it
might have been the
5th.
6th round.
It was late. I remember that.
Yeah, so he was drafted in 6th round, pick 193. And just a weird pick, too, considering their 3rd pick was Drake May. So, obviously saying that, I'm talking about Joe Milton III, who had an amazing combine, looked really good, one of the most, polished passing performances in the combine of all the quarterbacks. Was supposed to shoot him up the board, obviously didn't. He lasted till the 6th round, but even then, Patriots making a choice to do what they did several years ago as well, and I don't think they were in the same draft, but where you've got At this point, he was so bad I forget his name. Who was the guy that was the starter last year?
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, him. Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, where you just go back and forth with whoever's playing better, and if they start playing bad, you just go back to the other one. That's
No.
different head coach. Bill Belichick's gone. Jared Mayo's there. Seems like they're going to be doing the same thing.
I'm curious to see how that works out, because they also have Jacoby Brissett, who's going to, I think, be the number 2. So Milton as the number 3. Yeah, I don't know what New England's going to do with their quarterbacks. I don't think Drake May starts right away. So if he struggles later in the season, they might give Joe Milton a chance. And yeah, he looked good in week 1 of the preseason too. So
that's the reason he's on my list. If he had been bad in the preseason or just pedestrian, he wouldn't even be on my list. But he had a good combine. He was touted. People liked his game, and he came in week 1, 4 of 6, 54 yards, a touchdown. Like, he played very well. So it's to me, it's just going to be interesting. It's hard to supplant a number 3 pick, right? But if you're good, you should be the one playing, and it's just, I'll be watching with interest. And it's so many times people like Joe Milton get picked behind someone else young that's given the option just because they were picked earlier, and they just kind of toil in no man's land and fizzle out. So I hope that doesn't happen, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened with Kirk Cousins and RG3 back in 2012. Kirk was the 4th round pick of the same draft. Mm-hmm. He only got in because RG3 got hurt, but showed enough that eventually they decided to let RG3 walk and just stick with Kirk, and didn't work out in Washington, but he's had a pretty good career. So yeah, you never know with Joe Milton. I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting if he can overtake Jacoby Brissett for that number 2 job. That would be huge. So that's something to watch in preseason. If they release their depth chart and he's listed as 2nd, it's like, oh, maybe they really like him. So we'll see how that goes the rest of the preseason. Let's dive into our news. Actually got a couple things to talk about. Number 1 came out today. J.J. McCarthy out for the season for the Vikings. That sucks. I'm not a Vikings fan. Obviously, I mean, you're a Lions fan. But just anytime a rookie quarterback a rookie goes down. I mean, anytime anybody goes down, but like a rookie and as a rookie quarterback and as a 1st round pick, that really sucks. I legitimately feel bad. Plus, I like J.J. McCarthy. I think he's a good guy from what I've seen in interviews and everything. So that is just bad luck.
I like competition, and I don't like. I'll take wins however they come, but it is more enjoyable and less excuses from the fans of the teams you're playing when you're beating them with their best players, because somehow you beat a team with.
Sam Darnold is not competition.
Oh no, I'm gonna get there in a second. I'm saying, J.J. McCarthy was their best chance at anything. And they are about to go back into the Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall purgatory that now includes Sam Darnold. A worse purgatory than they had last year. I feel bad for Vikings fans because it's more fun to beat them when they have no excuses. And I feels bad for J.J. McCarthy that his rookie season's just already gone. But I don't like the Vikings, and seeing them put into this situation, it makes me laugh. So,
no, I get that. I mean, I think if this was the Giants, Eagles, or Cowboys, I would just be laughing. But
which is funny because it's not laughing at him getting hurt. I wish that never happened. It's just laughing at now what they have. So,
yeah. Well, and they're the ones that all off season were like, oh, Sam Darnold looks good. He may start week 1, and it's like, okay.
Same thing happened in where was he at last year? Last year they were talking about him looking good.
49ers.
He might be the starter over Purdy and this and that. And I'm like, are we what? What are we talking about here?
I'm curious to see if the Vikings bring anybody else in, maybe try to get Josh Dobbs back or just roll with Darnold. But yeah, that sucks. Next up, the Steelers. So this is what I read last night, is that Pittsburgh has a deal in place with the 49ers for Brandon Ayuk, and they are just waiting for Ayuk to agree to the Steelers' contract offer. I thought that it would be done today. I didn't see any update, so I don't know now what's going to happen, but it seems like he's going to end up in Pittsburgh.
I mean, even Jerry Rice tweeted that it was going to happen today. So
yeah,
a lot of people thought it was happening today, but
yeah,
the day's not over either. We're on it's West Coast. It's 7:30 at night. It's not over. So
true.
You know,
could be,
maybe in the middle of this podcast, we'll hear some news.
Breaking news on the podcast.
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, but I think that would be pretty exciting for Pittsburgh, having Pickens and Ayuk. As of right now, really, I mean, they've got Roman Wilson, their third round pick. It looks pretty good. So it would be great for Pittsburgh, and you know, you talk about Ricky Pearsall for San Francisco, wouldn't really do much there. He'd step right in. So we'll watch that. Hollywood Brown hurt his shoulder in week 1 of the preseason, the Chiefs game. I haven't seen any. They said he's going to miss like 4 weeks, or he's going to miss a couple weeks. I haven't seen anything about him missing week 1, but something worth watching.
Especially considering yes, they won the Super Bowl, but as a regular season team, still got to get the wins. And their wide receiver, he's the biggest wide receiver they brought in. So if he misses time, get ready for more drop passes.
I like Rashee Rice. I don't, Xavier Worthy is kind of I don't really know right now, but
Xavier Worthy is, how do you say it without being offensive to him? He is short and skinny. There you go. I'll just say that. 5'11", 160 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't have high hopes for him. Yeah, so were like half the wide receivers that flamed out for the Raiders. At least they learned their lesson. And the Chiefs did not take that into account at all. So we'll see how Xavier Worthy does. But I just think of, God, who was that wide receiver that Tavon Austin won? I mean, I guess he ended up having a decent career, but he was never the guy. There was another one, a first rounder they picked that was really fast and played like one.
The Raiders? Darius Hayward-Bay.
There he is. Yeah. He flamed out very quickly.
Yeah. I remember watching that draft, and that name popped up. Me and my dad were watching it together, and we're both like, who? And we had to look it up, and the dude literally was like, he was coming out of nowhere. He just ran fast. And he flamed out. Yeah. I mean, Xavier Worthy's probably going to be the same thing, to be perfectly honest, but you never, I don't know.
That is my belief, that he will be the same situation as Hayward-Bay, Tavon Austin, just a guy that kind of is there. You spent a first rounder on him when you probably could have got a Ricky Pearsall, a Ladd McConkey, like a guy that might actually be the guy. So obviously that's a lot of doubt to throw on Xavier Worthy, and seems like hate.
We went with Darius Hayward-Bay because we're old, but John Ross from Cincinnati, that wasn't that long ago. That was another guy they drafted who was a speedster that never amounted to anything. Exactly. Speaking of Tavon Austin, he announced his retirement from the NFL a couple days ago.
He still played?
I don't know, but he announced that he was retiring.
That's like if Larry Fitzgerald was like, I am actually officially announcing my retirement.
Hey,
since he just kind of
Martavius Bryant signed with the Commanders after like 8 years out of the NFL, so you never know when these guys are actually retired or not.
I'm looking like, did he play? The last time he played was 2021 for the Jaguars. See, he had 24 catches and 213 yards and touchdown. Did not know.
Yeah, see? 3 years out of the NFL, that's nothing.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane to me.
Marcus Golden also retired, former Cardinal, so I wanted to give him a shout out.
He's still young, isn't he?
Marcus Golden? I think he's probably got to be in his early 30s. He might be getting out early.
Yeah, I feel like he's pulling the Barry Sanders here.
Yeah, not wanting to play until he's banged up too much.
Am I spelling his name wrong? Does he just not show up on ESPN?
But
How do you spell his last name? Just regular Golden?
Yeah, I believe so. Are you spelling Marcus with a K?
No, I was not. There's the
That's
problem.
Why. He is 33 years old. So yeah, a little early, but I mean that's fair.
Yeah, he drafted in 2015, so he didn't play 10 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase still holding out for contracts. No news there, but worth monitoring. And then just today, Matthew Judon traded from the Patriots to the Falcons for a 3rd-round pick.
Why?
Good pass rusher.
Were they just not wanting to pay Judon at the end of the season? So they're like, let's get something for him now?
I think so. When I saw it on Twitter, they mentioned something about, like, now the Patriots don't have to worry about his contract. So I'm assuming that it's something like that.
Yeah, because I was like, that's an interesting trade. I mean, I'm glad for them that they at least got a 3rd. Seems like he's better than that, but everyone I think is better than that these days in NFL trades is a 3rd-rounder. They just don't trade 2nd and 1st that often anymore, unless it's a massive trade.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also don't know how old he's getting. I don't think he's too old, but maybe he's getting up there. All right, so we'll dive in. We'll just do a quick recap of preseason week 1. I really only went through and looked at some rookies, mostly quarterbacks, just to see how they performed, since that's the most exciting thing anyways. Yeah. So we'll start off in order of where they were drafted in the 1st round. Caleb Williams was 4 of 7, 95 yards, 1 scramble for 13 yards. 2 drives resulted in 2 field goals. Nothing wowie zowie about it, but productive. Jaden Daniels, 2 of 3, 45 yards, 1 rush for 3 yards, which was a touchdown run. He didn't do much. He was 1 drive and they ran the ball a lot. Drake May was 2 of 3 for 19 yards. He did even less. JJ McCarthy, we talked about him getting hurt. He also had a great game coming in as the number 2 quarterback. 11 of 17, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he did run 2 times for 18 yards. Looked very good. Justin Jefferson on the sideline was getting hyped. But, yeah, unfortunately, we will not see him until next preseason.
Had the best preseason game, and then he's gone.
Yeah, really, that really sucks. Michael Penix Jr., 9 of 16 for 104 yards. Didn't scramble, which I thought was interesting, considering I thought he was more of a mobile guy. And then Bo Nix, 15 of 21, played a lot. 125 yards for 1 touchdown, 3 carries for 17.
And actually looked good. But, I mean,
he looked very good.
Considering who he was playing against, I don't want to get too excited there, but I was surprised by that.
I thought I read somewhere that said he's going to start the next game, so that'll be interesting. He's definitely one worth watching. Everything I've seen people talking about, like, well, Sean Payton loves him. And even though the Broncos weren't great last year, I still consider Sean Payton a very good coach. So if he can coach Bo Nix up, he could be a good one to watch. But see how he does if he does end up starting this week. How he does number ones.
It's crazy to me how, like, we keep talking about these rookie quarterbacks, but he's going to be the starter in Denver, and I never hear anything about him. No one ever talks about Bo Nix.
Yeah, I know it's which is why he's going to be like a star, because he's getting no recognition.
And I was about to say, and it's probably better off for him because it's less pressure going into the season, and he can just focus on himself, focus on his team, and hopefully start turning people's eyes towards him.
Yeah, absolutely. Running backs, Jalen Wright for the Dolphins, 10 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Pretty solid. I mean, their running back room is crowded. And then Braylon Allen for the Jets, 6 carries for 54 yards. So he's fighting for the backup job for Breece Hall.
And it's just because it's off, I can say it right off the rip. Oh, I saw ESPN breaking news, but it's Aaron Judge reaching 300 career home runs. It wasn't a trade.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
I was like, holy cow. Wait, the Cowboys acquired Jordan Phillips in a trade with the Giants?
He's a defensive lineman, yeah.
Interesting. But since we're in Arizona, I can give an update on Marvin Harrison. He played 3 plays, and all of them were... It was 2 rushes and a pass play that got disrupted in the backfield. So nothing went his way. He got his toes wet. He's actually been on the NFL field before now. Might be the same, more of the same this week. So
yeah, he ran some routes. That's or blocked.
One of the two. Not much.
All right. So preseason week 1 depth charge bet from last week. We both went 2 out of 2. I got the Jets over Commanders, Saints over Cardinals, but missed out on the Panthers and New England. Panthers looked awful. And the Chargers over Seattle. You had the Jags over the Chiefs and Rams over Dallas, but also missed out on the Chargers over Seattle and the Steelers over Houston. So, bummers there, but we'll see if we can do a little better this week. So for week 2, I didn't shoot so high. Last week I went, plus 4,000 odds or something ridiculous. This time, plus 846. I'm going with the Texans over the Giants. Texans look good, so I like that. Colts over the Cardinals, because the Cardinals, lol. Titans over Seahawks because Sam Howell can't play. And the Dolphins over the Commanders because lol Commanders.
All right, let me just put mine in real quick and see what the odds are. Because I don't know what the odds on mine are. I just picked them to pick them. So we'll see.
Oh, well, you put that on last week, so I put it on this week.
I know. I wanted to be on, but this was one of the last things I did before we started the podcast. So let me just get this one. Hey, geez, the Bears are a massive favorite. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, well, everybody sees the final score against Buffalo and don't realize that it was like all at the end of the game with third stringers playing, so I don't really count that.
Yeah. All right, well, mine was plus 752.
All right, so pretty close to mine, man.
Minus 1,000 from last week, so...
We're both trying to get a little more winnable here.
Apparently. I went with the Rams over the Chargers. Chargers couldn't do anything against Seattle from what I saw. The Rams did pretty well last week. I picked the Saints over the 49ers. We talked about Spencer Rattler, so I'm going to give him some love on this one.
I like that.
And the Bears over the Bengals. For whatever reason, the Bears preseason has been very good. And then I picked the Patriots over the Eagles just because of how good Milton looked. So even if Drake May doesn't play a lot, like he didn't, he played 1 series last week, Joe Milton will play a lot, and Joe Milton looked good. So, okay, that was me apparently. Weird.
Yeah, I think my internet just completely froze for a second there.
I don't think it was yours. I disconnected from the live and everything.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was mine because you disconnected. All right. Well, I was saying, so we'll dive into our.
The picture of you that got froze on the screen was the most unbecoming picture ever.
Well, that's all of my pictures.
I hope that before it disconnected, that stays there because I'm going to find it.
All right, so we're going to do the South Division recaps this week, AFC South and NFC South. Starting off with the AFC South. Division winner last year was the Houston Texans, finished at 10-7 after coming out of nowhere with C.J. Stroud's rookie year. They lost quite a bit. Devin Singletary, George Fant, Josh Jones, Michael Dieter, a lot of offensive linemen, Jonathan Greenard, Jerry Hughes, Malik Collins, Sheldon Rankins, Hassan Ridgeway, Blake Cashman, Denzel Perryman, Steve Nelson. I mean, they lost a lot of defense, too.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they did sign Joe Mixon, which definitely an upgrade over Devin Singletary. Traded for Stephon Diggs, signed Daniil Hunter, Mario Edwards, Tim Settle, Jeff Okudah, great. Aziz Al-Shakir, is a good linebacker. So they plugged the holes. I don't know if it's an upgrade or a downgrade. We'll see. Then they drafted Kamari Lassiter, Blake Fisher, Kate Stover, tight end. But the big thing for the Texans is their offense. Obviously, adding Stephon Diggs is huge. Adding Joe Mixon, huge. C.J. Stroud, another year to develop. That's going to be their bread and butter. FanDuel has their over-under at 9.5, which is interesting. They won 10 games last year. What are you thinking?
This is what makes this hard. You can either buy into the hype machine, which I will fully admit, last year I was 100% on board the bandwagon. And I don't know if it's just me not liking being on a hype machine. It's tough. 9.5, they put it right where it's like, you either like them or you don't. Because I feel like under 9.5, so just a 9-win season, is a massive backtrack for them. Because I feel like they are better. A lot of their main guys are still going to be there together for the second year. Now you're throwing in Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs on top of that core. They should be much better as far as the offense goes. And then, like you said, they plugged a lot of those defensive holes that they lost with good players like Danielle Hunter, Aziz Al-Shakir. Like they've done what they needed to do to be better. Now, I think the biggest point for them is, can Stroud continue to be the guy he was last year? Was it a flash in the pan? That's the biggest question. And my answer to that, I think, is that he's not, and that he is who he thought he was. And so I'm just going to say over on that one, because at the very least they should get 10 wins again.
Agreed. That's the way I look at it. I think their offense will definitely be better. It was good last year, and I think it'll be better with Mixon and Diggs added in. The defense, I'm not sure of, but it is the AFC South. There's not a lot of other competition there.
That's the biggest thing, I think, too, is that I don't think anyone did enough to overtake them in that division.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So getting to 10 wins, I think they get there. So yeah, if this was 10.5, that would be a lot harder for me. But I look at it and say, I mean, they won 10 last year. I don't see any reason they can't do it again.
And let me just remind you how good their secondary is, because they still have the young Derek Stingley Jr., Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward, who they got last year. They just drafted Kamari Lassiter, and they have Desmond King and
Jeff Okudah.
They signed C.J. Henderson. They signed. Like their secondary is stacked.
That was sarcasm.
Jeff Okudah, yeah, well, he's good.
Sarcasm.
He's good depth. He's not starting for them, so I don't have to worry about him.
He is a body on the team. He is a warm body that can sit on the bench.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, no, I like the Texans this year. I think now there are a lot of people say, "Oh, C.J. Stroud, he's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes." I'm like, I don't know about that, but if you can get up to Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts level, which is definitely possible with all those weapons. So yeah, let's go over 9.5.
One season, he's put himself in the top 10 conversation. So
yeah,
easily, and working his way to the top 5 conversation.
Absolutely. Next up, Jaguars finished last season 9-8. They had this division on lockdown until like the last month of the season, in which case they just gave it all away. So don't know what to expect from them. They lost Calvin Ridley. They let him go. It's really the only name that stands out to me. They did add Gabe Davis, Mitch Morse, good center, Reek Armstead, Ronald Darby, Darnell Savage, drafted Brian Thomas Jr., Mason Smith, good DT. So they did a lot of work. I like Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. It's good for the offense. They still got they paid Trevor Lawrence a lot of money. Their over-under is 8.5. So once again, one less win than last year. This one's tough. I really don't know, man. I like I like Travis Etienne. And I like Christian Kirk, and I like Evan Ingram. I'm not completely sold on Trevor Lawrence yet, as good as he was supposed to be coming out of college. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say they get to 9 wins again. I'm going to go over 8.5.
So for me, it comes down to a decision between them and our next team. And I'm going to say under for the Jags because I do not believe in Trevor Lawrence. He's going to have to do something to make me think that he is the guy that everyone thinks he is this year.
Yeah. The way they paid him was ridiculous. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, for me, the jury's still out, even though they just paid him a bunch of money as if he is a franchise quarterback. And I think it's really getting to the point where he's running out of opportunities to show that he deserves it. So yeah, this is a tough one. This team and then the next team definitely tough. So the next team is the Indianapolis Colts, who finished last year at 9-8, under Gardner Minshew for most of the season. Who they lost in the offseason. They also lost Zach Moss, Isaiah McKenzie. They did sign Joe Flacco to be their backup, and Raekwon Davis. They really did not do much in free agency. They drafted Laiatu Latu and Adonai Mitchell. And big thing for them is getting Anthony Davis back to hopefully start every game for them this season.
Who?
That's the big one. Is it not Anthony Davis? No, that's NBA. What am I thinking of? Anthony Richardson. Yeah.
All right, good. I'm not the only one.
Well, at least you were in the right sport. I was in the NBA.
I'm not the only one saying names wrong. All right. Woo.
So yeah, Anthony Richardson. See, and that to me is just like Trevor Lawrence with the Jags. Anthony Richardson's health and how many games will he play is the big thing for the Colts this year. If he's healthy, he could be, Lamar Jackson like. But if he plays 4 or 5 games, then their season's going to rely on Joe Flacco.
Or Sam Ellinger, both bad.
Right, Sam Ellinger's still there.
Choices, but for me, there's a couple things. Right, last year to start the season, they didn't have Jonathan Taylor because A, the contract situation, and B, him being hurt. He's starting the season, which is why you look at the loss of Zach Moss and you think, well, that's bad for them because he played really well last year. But he played really well while Jonathan Taylor was not there and hurt. So Jonathan Taylor's going to be fine. Their backup now becomes Trey Sermon, a guy I've always liked. So I think that he'll be a good one to step into the role that Zach Moss is leaving. I just don't see a lot of loss for them as far as the team goes. And then without Anthony Richardson, they were 9-8 last season. So if he comes back and he can play maybe, let's say, 75% of what he was doing, meaning not running every play and trying to get hurt for 4 straight games and then actually finally getting hurt, helping himself to not get hurt, learning what Kyler Murray had to learn, which was, this is the NFL. It's not college. You can't run that way all the time and expect to play entire seasons in the NFL. So I think they're good. I think they have a good team. I like Adonai Mitchell adding in there. Definitely, I feel like he's an upgrade over Isaiah McKenzie, who they lost. They still have Michael Pittman. They still have Josh Downs. They still have Alec Pierce, who kind of just disappeared last season after an amazing rookie year as their 4th guy. They've got a good team, and I'm going to give them the over that I didn't give the Jaguars.
That's fair. I'm going to go with the under since I gave the Jags the over.
I'll be right back.
All right, well, I'll dive into the last team in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans. Finished 2023 at 6-11. Fired Mike Vrabel and hired Brian Callahan as their new head coach. They also lost Ryan Tannehill, who had been their starter for years. Derrick Henry, obviously their starting running back for years. Andrew Dillard, Chris Hubbard, Aaron Brewer on the offensive line. They lost Aziz Al-Shakir, Sean Murphy-Bunting. They signed Mason Rudolph to back up Will Levis, who will be their new starter. They signed Tony Pollard to be their new running back. They signed Calvin Ridley, Sadiq Charles, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kenneth Murray, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, drafted J.C. Latham in the first round. So did a lot of work on the offensive line to protect Levis and to run the ball a lot, with Pollard and, gosh, I'm blanking on the backup's name there.
The backup, what?
Running back in Tennessee. He was a rookie last year.
Tyjae Spears?
Yes, thank you. Tyjae Spears. So, new head coach. They say they're going to pass the ball a lot more than they have in the past. So it's going to ride on Will Levis and Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins and, gosh, the receiver they drafted a couple years ago who hasn't done anything.
Burks.
On that guy's name too.
Treylon
Burks. Thank you. So the Titans, they're over under 6.5. I'm just going to go with the under. I mean, they won 6 games last year. New head coach, completely new offense. I'm not completely sold on Will Levis.
No, I am not either.
Under 6.5.
Yep, I'm definitely going under 6.5 for the Titans. If you talk to a Titans fan, they seem very excited about a full year of Will Levis with Tyjae Spears finally starting. But for me, I don't see it. Their secondary looks good. As far as the main keys of the inner defense, it'd be interesting to see how they do, because a lot of the names here are, you've got old guys like Arden Key. Will Tavondre Sweat pan out? There's just, I don't know. I don't see it for them, especially in that division. So,
yeah. I think the other 3 teams will be tough for them. And transitioning to a pass the ball offense under Brian Callahan, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Will Levis will surprise everybody, but I mean, at this moment in time, plus you can't state everybody's going to go over. So some people have to win less games. So I'm going to go with the Titans. All right, we'll dive into the NFC South, starting off with the division winners last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won their division at 9-8. Real thrilling division, the NFC South.
Was this the one we said was the worst?
Yes.
We kept calling it the worst division. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just excited to talk about them.
Oh, yeah.
I knew it was one of the Souths, and I didn't think it was the one.
They're both not great, but at least the AFC has the Texans in it, which are exciting. The NFC South really doesn't have anything. So.
Yeah, and you look at these records, but halfway through the year, it was looking way worse. They kind of like made it look a little more respectable towards the end of the year. But I mean, Bucs only made the playoffs because the Saints lost in the last week and they won, and it was just a battle to the end. Who was the bad team going to come out of the NFC South into the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly. But then the Bucs went on to beat the Eagles in the playoffs, so that was that was cool.
Yeah, take that.
In the offseason, they lost great games. Matt Filer in the offensive line, William Golston, Shaq Barrett, Devin White, Carlton Davis, Ryan Neal, good defenders. Gained Sua Opita, Ben Bredson, Randy Gregory, Bryce Hall, Jordan Whitehead. Lost a lot of good defenders, replaced them with, Randy Gregory's kind of meh. Did okay in Dallas, but he's washed. Drafted Graham Barton, center, Chris Braswell, Tyreek Smith, Jalen McMillan, and Bucky Irving. I like Jalen McMillan coming out.
I think Bucky Irving's interesting as well.
Yeah, because they have Rasheed White, who did well for him. They re-signed Baker Mayfield, extended him. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin. So still some weapons. They are 2 wins less projected. So
That's
7.5
crazy.
is awfully low, though. Yeah, that's awfully low. I'm going to go over just because I think they can get to 8 at least. If Baker played like he did last year, I think they'll be okay. If Baker regresses, then yeah, I could see them winning 7 games.
Yeah, they still have Levante David. They still have Vita Vea. Jordan Whitehead was a good pickup. Antoine Winfield's still there. Like, their defense has pieces, despite what they lost. Not to mention, I think they got better. A little better on offense. They had 9 wins. Your 7.5 is your over-under. I'll take it over, too. Yeah, somebody's got to win a bunch of games in this division. And if it's not the team that was good, who's it going to be?
If Baker can play like he did, I mean, maybe he's finally found his home. That'd be awesome. If not, then yeah, it's gonna be a long year for him. But I'm gonna give Baker the benefit. Next up, the Saints also finished season at 9-8. They lost Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Jimmy Graham, 2 longtime Saints. Andrews Pete, Marcus Garcia. They gained Cedric Wilson, Ollie Uda, Chase Young. Willie Gay and Khalil Hudson from the Commanders, who I always liked. Drafted Talise Fuaga, Kool-Aid McKinstry, great name, and of course Spencer Rattler, who we talked about at the top of the pod. Their over-under's also 7.5. I am gonna go the under on this one.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out within any of these moves or moving a needle as far as records go that would go, say, stay 9 or go higher, and none of them really are doing it for me. I'm not going to go 8 wins. You can't go 8-8 anymore, so it would be 8 and
9,
right?
Yeah.
It's still a losing record. I'll say over and give them 8 wins.
All right. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't think they're going to be terrible. 8 wins. I think the division, the Falcons will definitely be better. And, Alvin Kamara is just another year older. Derek Carr doesn't really thrill me. So we'll see. If Spencer Rattler ends up coming in mid-season and winning a bunch of games, it'll screw me. But for the time being, I'm going to go with the under. All right. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who finished last year at 7-10. They fired their head coach and hired Raheem Morris. They lost Desmond Ridder, their former starter, Cordell Patterson, Mac Hollins, Van Jefferson, Jonnu Smith, Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, and Jeff Okudah. They did sign Kirk Cousins. That's a big one for them. Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, who now is out for the season after breaking his leg. Ray McLeod, traded for Matthew Judon. We mentioned that. Drafted Michael Penix in the first round. Surprised the hell out of everybody.
What?
Yeah. Then a bunch of defensive guys. Rook Ororahor. I don't even know if I spelled that right.
Ororahor.
Braylon Trice, Brandon Dorless, and J.D. Burchard. Their over-under is 9.5. See, that's everybody. Everybody's assuming the Falcons just going to run away with the division.
Well, here's the thing. Nothing they lost to, like, as far as every name you said, I'm like, okay, that old, not great. The only one that was really Jonnu Smith, maybe Bud Dupree. Those are the 2 biggest ones. And they signed a tight end. So, I feel like most tight ends could pretty much get you what Jonnu Smith was giving you, even though Jonnu Smith went there they had high hopes for you. And then on top of that, that's their second tight end. You still have Kyle Pitts, and then So I don't feel like there was a lot of takeaway from the Falcons, and they went 7-10. They have a lot of weapons. They have a new head coach that might actually use those weapons. Bijan Robinson might actually do something. Kirk Cousins is there now, so that guy is a master of the regular season. So I'm going to say over on 9.5.
Yep, I completely agree. I like the Falcons this year. I like Raheem Morris as a coach. I like Bijan Robinson should finally get unleashed. Kirk is not thrilling, but he can get it done during the regular season, as you said. He's got Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Darnell Mooney is not a bad number 2. Yeah, I like them. I think they get to 10 wins and win this division for sure.
I'm going to have to change one. And I think I'm going to put the Saints off the over onto the under. Talk myself into... There's just not enough wins to go around in this division, because I don't think it's going to be as close as it was. I feel like it'll probably be Falcons 10 or 11 wins, Buccaneers 9 or 10 wins, Saints 7 or 8 wins. So I mean they could go over or under, but I feel like they're probably going to be under. Now that I'm talking about the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that's completely agree. I think the Falcons are if they can win 10, 11 or more, it's going to hurt everybody else in the division because that's 2 games that you're playing. Yeah, so all right. Well, all right, then we're in agreement then on the Saints under. Last team, this will be an interesting one. The Carolina Panthers finished last season at 2-15. Hired Dave Canellis from Tampa Bay as a new head coach. Lost a whole bunch of people. DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, Brian Burns, Frankie Louvu, Dante Jackson, CJ Henderson, Shaq Griffin, Jeremy Chin. They gained Deontay Johnson, David Moore, Robert Hunt, Ashawn Robinson, Jadavian Clowney, Calebon Chashon. That's a fun name. Jordan Fuller. Drafted Xavier Legette. Love him. Jonathan Brooks we talked about. Trevor Walsh and Jatavian Sanders. So massive turnover for the Panthers. New coaching staff. A lot of new players.
See, I'm going to have to go look at their depth chart because it sure looks like they completely rehauled the offense and didn't do a lot to help their defense.
I mean, Ashawn Robinson, Jadavian Clowney, DJ Woonem. I mean, they signed some new defensive ends, linebackers. I mean, I don't know how much of it's help. I'm not familiar with all of those players, but they did bring them in.
The thing I'm familiar with all those players is that they are older names, and so
sure. Yes, absolutely.
they could be middle of the road. What you need to have a decent defense to give that new offense enough to win, or they can be old and regress on final contracts, which happens so often, and it's just not going to work out for them at all. So that's tough because the over-under's 5.5, and I was going to pick the over until we're talking about what they did, because obviously you only play 6 division games out of 17 games. So there's a good chance they can win 6 games, but is the defense going to be good enough to hold them? They're going to really need that they're going to really need that offense to click. And was Dave Canales an offensive guy for Tampa Bay?
He was, I believe, the offensive
no wonder they win all offense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to still give it to them. I'm going to give them the over. I think they can find a way to win 6 games.
All righty.
Just based on that offense getting better. And Bryce Young, hopefully, it all hinges on Bryce Young. Is he as bad as he was last year, or does a new head coach bring out what made him the first pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
We'll see.
I am going to go under. I don't believe in Bryce Young. I do like Deontay Johnson. I love Xavier Legette. I like Jonathan Mingo, holder from last year. I like Jonathan Brooks, whenever he gets on there. I just don't think that Bryce Young is the guy that's going to win anything for them. So I'm definitely going the under.
And their owner, just
is a crazy bastard.
Yeah, he just makes it incredibly hard to root for them. And I'm a Lions fan. I am all about rooting for the underdogs, but what should be a slam dunk for them to get me to root for them is not, because of just how bad their owner is and the way he treats people. So
yeah, with Dan Snyder now gone, that dude is by far the worst owner in the NFL, and it's nice that my team is not the team with the worst owner anymore. I feel bad for Panthers fans. I've been there, went through it for like 30 years, so I feel your pain, guys. But yeah, the funny thing is that if Bryce Young were to go down, and they traded for a good backup. I can't even think of anybody. But they traded for a good backup. They do have so many weapons on offense. It's like, oh yeah, I can see them surprising people. I just don't think Bryce Young's the guy.
No, I'm with you. They have a guy named Jack Plummer. They drafted, or they undrafted rookie from Louisville. Yeah. I'm really curious. Is he related to Jake Plummer?
I don't think he is, and it's funny because I saw his name earlier, and I thought it said Jake Plummer, and I was like, "There's
there's no way Jake the Snake has come out of retirement to play third string for the Panthers."
Jack Plummer played high school football at Gilbert High School in Arizona, but he is not related to Jake Plummer.
That's insane.
What is up with the high schools in Arizona all of a sudden?
I'm telling you, man, these days Arizona high schools pump out NFL recruits.
He is the brother of former U of A quarterback Will Plummer, if that name is familiar to you.
Will Plummer.
Interesting. It's not familiar to me. Yeah.
No. I don't. He must not have been a starter for U of A.
Jack Plummer is 6'5". He's a foot taller than Bryce Young.
I'm just saying, Jack Plummer's now on my watch list.
He might be one of my favorite rookie quarterbacks. Local kid, big.
How'd he do? He went 11 for 21 for 86 yards in their first preseason game.
Well, that is going to be somebody to be watching in the preseason, just as a pod favorite.
Yes, exactly. Gilbert High School grad, not son of Jake the Snake Plummer.
I'm going to call him Jake Plummer by accident at least 3 times.
It happens.
Yeah. All right, well, there you go.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode 2. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Do you have a preview? What are we going? So we've done East? No.
Yeah, we did East and South.
So are we going West or North next week?
North, because we're moving East to West. So we're doing AFC, NFC North next week.
NFC North. I like those guys. That'll be fun.
You like 25% of those guys.
True. So it'll work out. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for people that came and hang out on the live on TikTok. For everybody on all the podcast platforms that are listening, we appreciate you as well. And if you're watching this live on YouTube, enjoy that as well. Pretty awesome thing. Since this records on TikTok and vertical, if you watch the podcast on YouTube on your phone, it fills up the whole screen. It's great. Vertically. I thought that it would have black lines across the sides, but it actually cuts it out. It's kind of crazy. So, perfect. Enjoy. But yeah, until next week, we appreciate everyone. You guys are great.
And tell everybody to find us on Twitter or follow us on TikTok.
We're on TikTok right now.
Oh, they may not be following us.
Okay, sorry. Here you go, everybody. You can find us on Twitter at Coffin Corners. You can find us on TikTok at Coffin Corner Podcast. You can find us on YouTube at Coffin Corner. And you can find us on any podcast platform available. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Android Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcast places. So check us out. Let us know what you think on any of those platforms. Just leave a comment, rating, ranking, whatever you want. It all works. So there you go. Better?
There we go.
We good?
Yes, that's your end of the show chatter. You got to go through that every time.
I missed it. I'm off my game. It's only episode 2, all right?
Yeah, you're still in preseason form.
Yes, I'm getting pushed from behind on the second guy on the depth chart here. So, all right, everybody, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back next week with episode 3 covering the north of the AFC and NFC. Until then, thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you then.